So I'm going to give it another minute or so before I get started. If you're here, say hello in the comments. I'd love to see that. All right, while people are joining, I'm gonna do my little spiel I do before each live. As you can see, I have a dual screen cameras up there, so for part of this, I will not be able to see if there's what the comments or if there's any questions. So I will hopefully have a moderator who will help with that, and if not, I will check back on comments periodically throughout the live. Oh, Dawn is here, so good, yay. She will help answer questions for me. So anyway, my name is Julia, and I'm an educational designer for Thermoweb on their fabric side. And I also have a blog called Inflorescence Designs. I tagged it in the description, so if you're interested, you can check that out. There you will find any of the projects I do for Thermoweb, as well as some of my own things. I'm part of Blog Hops, and I provide some free patterns and all that fun stuff. So we are going to get started. I'm going to be moving over to my workstation, and let's make some fabric postcards. There we go. Hopefully it's still working. Give it a minute, and then Dawn, if you can tell me if the live feed is still there. I accidentally hit my cord connecting my phone. Okay, I see my hand there, so we're okay. We're good. All right. Some tight spaces over here between my computer and my work area, but I make it work. So tonight we are going to make some postcards, and I thought that this would be fun for after the holidays, because I'm sure we've been working really hard on all our holiday projects, and we've gifted them, and we've gotten gifts from others, and these little postcards come together really quickly and are a great way to say thank you to those who gave us some gifts. So, all right, I was just checking my feed and Dawn said it looks good, so we're good. All right, so tonight I'm going to show you 3 different techniques. One is the applique technique. The other is using Thermoweb's Deco Foil. The nice pretty shine. And then this one was just some fun. I used some of Gina K Glitter Glitz gel, which is typically used on the paper side of things, but I wanted to try it with fabric since this was just going to be a postcard, and it turned out really neat. So I'm going to show you how I did that as well. So to start, I have it connected. I have it linked in the description, a link to the blog post where you can find the list of all the materials that I'm using tonight, as well as I made this fun template for a postcard. It's a 4x6. You don't have to use this if you just want to use cardstock. That works too, but this is a 4x6 frame. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut these out. and 2. And then we're doing 3 tonight, and I already have another one cut out for us. So the next thing you'll want to do if you're making several like we are tonight is you'll want to prep this HeatnBond Craft Extra Firm interfacing. So this is just going to give a little bit more body to our postcard. So we're going to cut that. This is going to be cut to 4 by 6 as well. Okay, it's pretty even right there. All right. So the first one we're going to do tonight is the applique. So here's the applique one. Applique, simply we're going to fussy cut out a design and we're going to apply it with some HeatnBond Lite to our postcard. So it really doesn't matter what order you do this in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to apply the craft firm interfacing. This piece of fabric here is also 4 by 6. It's the same size as the card. And we're going to fuse the craft firm interfacing to the wrong side. And I don't know if you can see it's kind of shiny. That's the adhesive side, so that will go down. You're just going to line it right up and fuse it. So as I do this, I'm going to walk you through each of the steps for the different cards. And the last thing we will do is we will stitch them to our paper. I won't go back and forth between stitching to paper between each of these. The paper part actually is really quick. So we're just going to set this aside. And then this here is HeatnBond Lite. I'll show you what the packaging looks like. This is the kind that you need to sew. If you don't want to do any applique stitching, you'll need HeatnBond Ultra, which is in the red packaging. And I already have this piece of fabric pulled out, and I decided I already knew what I was going to fussy cut from it. And if you don't know what fussy cut means, it just means we're going to cut out where we want it. So a lot of times when you're doing quilt patterns, you just cut based on the dimensions in the pattern. But if something says to fussy cut, then you kind of fussy around with it to find what you want. So we're actually going to do this little hedgehog and this letter. So before we cut that out, we need to fuse our HeatnBond Lite to the fabric. All right, I'm gonna let that cool down. Oh, that feels so good. All right, let me find my little scissors. And I'm just going to cut out around this little guy. And you can make these postcards as complicated or as simple. I went on the more simpler side for tonight, just for purposes of demonstration. You can even do what they call quilted postcards, which is essentially what we're doing, but you use more of like a fleece in the middle. So you could use the fusible fleece to give it a little more quilted look. All right, so there's our little fussy cut guy. We're going to peel the backing off and center it where we'd like. Now keep in mind we will be having some stitching. As you can see, there is some stitching. I mean, it can go over top of it. It doesn't matter, but if you don't want it to, you want to keep that in mind. It will go all the way around. So our guy looks really cute right there. So I'm going to fuse it to our fabric. And I'm going to let this cool, but it's going to cool as I work my way over to the sewing machine. And what I'm going to be doing is just a quick scribbling around the edge of this. So by scribbling, I'm just going to be doing, like this one, a straight stitch just around the edge. You can do a blanket stitch, you can do zigzag, whatever your preference is. Tonight I'm doing the same as I did here, with just a straight around the edge. So you can kind of see what I'm sewing, and not just staring at my face. Okay. All right. Cut off these. So I went around it. I did it twice. I kind of went around the outside and then around the inside. It's just fun. So essentially that is the applique method. You can do more than just one fussy cut. You can, and I'm actually going to show that later. I have another applique that we're going to add to the other one. Which is layered. So we're not going to put the paper on yet. We're going to move to the next technique, and then we'll put on the paper for all of them at the same time. So we'll set this one off to the side. So the next one we're going to do is the Deco Foil. And I have some Valentine fabric for this one. I thought I'd get a jump start. This is really cute if you want to make some really cute, quick Valentines. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. We are going to, for this one, the steps do matter. We're going to need to apply our craft interfacing first. And that's the shiny side. We want that facing down on our fabric. And again, for those who may have just jumped in, these are 4 by 6 inches. And these postcards, you can mail them as is. They're flat. They're not gonna, they're not gonna be too bulky. But if you want the integrity to last and not to get dirty, I do suggest you do put them in an envelope. Okay. So here we go. So I just put the interfacing on, gives it a little more body. And what I'll be using next is, it's called Hot Melt Adhesive. It's meant for Deco Foil with fabric. And I have already cut out my pieces. You can hand cut this. You can use this with a, oh my goodness, I can't think of what it's called. Having a moment. One of those cutters that you roll through. I can't think of what it's called. Yeah. And that's what I used. I used my cutter to cut out some heart shapes. I don't know if I'll use all these, but I cut out this many because it was fun. So to use this, once you've cut out your shapes, either with your cutter or by hand, you will just need to determine where you want them on your piece, remembering that we do have, I'd say, about a ½ inch or 3/8 of an inch around that we might not want the Deco Foil to be in. I like odd numbers, so we probably will do 5. We'll save these for another day. And I'm going to use some pressing paper and put it over top and iron these down. And I didn't mention it, but there is a textured side and then the side with the paper, and you want the texture side facing down as you iron it. We're going to let that cool completely. And tonight I am using some gold Deco Foil because of the really pretty gold in the fabric. But Thermoweb has so many different colors, so many different textures. This one is called, I believe, Shattered Glass. It's like a shattered glass look. And yep, gold shattered glass. There's ones with little stars, there's rainbows. There's just plain solid color. We're going to then, once it's cooled, you will peel each these off. And I have to use a new sheet. I don't have any used sheets yet. And the sheets are really big. So we're going to cut it down. So you'll want to cut, you could place it over like this, but then that's wasteful. So we're going to cut just slightly larger than the pieces we need. So you cut them just slightly larger and you place them directly over the hot melt. And you'll need your pressing paper. Again, you don't want this to hit the heat directly, and I need to actually turn this down to medium heat. So we'll let that go to medium heat. And you'll place that over top of that. And while we're waiting for that to come down to medium heat, I can just show you, there are all sorts of fun deco foils that you can do so many things with. And you can use these on t-shirts, on home decor. If you just go to Thermoweb's blog, you can find all sorts of fun designs and projects that use deco foil with fabric. All right, it is a little bit cooler, so now we're going to place the iron over top this for about 30 to 40 seconds with some pressure. I'm just going to move it around slightly. Okay. And again, you want it to cool completely. You don't want to move it until it has cooled. Just another few seconds. And then once it's cooled, you simply peel it off. That one didn't come off quite right, but that's okay. Aren't those fun? Really cute. It would be really cute for Valentine's. You could even like half the size or turn it this way. All right, so that is the deco foil technique. We'll work on the next technique before we adhere this to the cardstock. I am going to take 2 minutes. I'm going to come over and check the chat and see if there's anything needed. Okay. All right, so the final technique that I'm going to share with you tonight is using glitter glitz gel. And this is what it looks like. It is typically, you see it used in a lot of the paper projects, cards and scrapbooking, and I just wanted to try it, and it worked. It gives it a lot of dimension, like an embossed look and feel to it. So we are going to do that tonight. I'm going to share with you how to do it. I need to get a 4x6 piece of fabric. I need to cut it. I didn't cut this one. I have it planned ahead because it does take time to dry, and I have a dried one already. That's probably where I thought that I cut one. So we're going to cut some fabric down to 4x6. Now for this technique, you will need something to cover your workspace. I have an old cutting board that I use. I use this when I'm doing the liquid vinyl and anything like that, because you don't want to get it on your nice pressing mat or ironing board. So now to use this technique, you can paint it on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another product that Thermoweb has, and it's one of their stencils. This is part of Rina K. It's a sweets. I have an obsession with donuts and ice cream, and this one just spoke to me. So we're going to do just this really nice lattice look, and for color's sake, since we're not using it tonight because I have to let it dry, I'm going to use this really pretty turquoise color. Now you can use, they have a scraper. I do not know what they're called. I'm sorry, Dawn. I do not have the one that's on Thermoweb website. I am simply using a card top loader. My husband collects trading cards, all different kinds, and he had one of these, and it works pretty good. But there is a tool, and I don't know what it's called, that you can use. So we're going to put our template down on top of our fabric on our nice safe workspace. And I have already prepared this. I stirred it up, and I'm going to just take a little corner of my top loader card piece and put it on and start pressing and pulling. And it's going to fill in the opening. And there's still plenty on there. I just keep pressing and pulling and clean off so it has a nice flat. And I will need a little bit more. I notice I'm trying not to get it on the rest of my piece, so I'm kind of going out here first and pressing and pulling. Just a little bit more, not that much. little bit more. Okay. Now you'll want to wash this pretty soon. I have a bucket of water over here that I'm going to submerge it in so it doesn't dry on me. Same goes with the stencil. So we're going to peel the stencil off and it's going to reveal our design. How pretty is that? So this will have to dry. And I did not do it beforehand, but with this you will need to put on the craft interfacing first before you do this. I wasn't thinking. I knew I wasn't going to be using this tonight, so I failed to do that. But always put on the craft interfacing first. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, and I'm going to bring out one that I already have done that is dry. All right, so I did this really pretty iridescent color. You can really see how it pops out. And we're going to use another product for fun. I'm just sharing all these fun products that you don't see every day being used. So that's just what's really fun about this, is you get to broaden your horizons. All right, so we're going to be using Fabric Fuse, and I mentioned earlier we're going to do another applique, and this one we're going to have layered. I was racking my brains on how I wanted to decorate this one, and then I went through my scraps. I have so many different scraps that have the HeatnBond Lite, so we're just going to applique this fun little funky groovy flower on there. So we're going to do that before we use the Fabric Fuse. And this one is in layers. So we're going to get it the way we want first before we fuse it. Now I am going to be adding some ribbon right here, so I want to make sure that it doesn't cover this. All right, so this is ready to be appliqued or fused first, and then we'll applique, and I'm making sure I'm not touching that. And you might be able to hear my children in the background. They know I'm doing this, and they know they should be a little quieter, but it's holiday break, so they are having a ball. All right, so I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I'm going to do a quick little stitch to hold it in place, and then we'll be back. I'm just laughing at my children. If it was school time, they'd be sleeping by now. Okie dokie. So I just did a real quick stitch around. And now we are going to add this. And I'm going to do it before we do the paper. I did it before the last time and it was fine. So I have this fun rickrack. This is very springy. And I'm going to use Fabric Fuse. It's a quick bond fabric adhesive. I love this stuff. So let me cut it. As you can see, my bottle is very well loved. We're gonna, don't need too much. Now, if you're gonna add any like anything that you can't sew through, I would do that after the fact, of course. But this, we can sew through it. So. And I'm going to put this right along the line of where I have the Glitter Glitz gel. And my applique. And I'm going to trim it. Oops. It does not bond like hot glue. It doesn't go that quickly, but it does bond. It will be bonded by the time I get to sewing it. So actually, I'll just cut it when it comes to that. So while that dries, the next step, and it's really the final step, is putting the paper postcard piece to the back side of each of the postcards that we made. So you can just stitch it. You can just kind of hold on to it. You can clip it. I like to use some basting spray. You can use basting spray or this pattern and stencil adhesive. It's not a permanent bond, but it will kind of hold it in place for you while you do it. I believe on the website I said I use this, so we're going to use this tonight. Either one works. Just going to gently spray just a little bit on there. Making sure it's the right direction. And that, I mean, it holds it. See if I can't even hold it like this. It holds it on there really good, just so that it's, while you're stitching, it's holding it for you. So we'll do the same thing. This one. It's forgiving too. That's what's nice about it. Okay, and then we will let this one dry just a minute before we do this. So I am going to take this over to my machine and I will give a kind of close up here. So as you can see, it's like a zigzag. So on my machine, I will put it on my zigzag stitch and I am going to lengthen the width. So my machine automatically puts it at, I think, like a 3. But I'm going to lengthen mine to a 5.0. And that is the width. My machine will automatically put the stitch length, I believe, at a 1. and I'm going to shrink it down and put it at a 0.8. Before you do this on your own, I would just take a scrap piece of fabric and kind of play with what you want. You don't want it to be too close, because too close, it will, you know, you can see where the stitches are in the paper. If it's too close, you're essentially just going to tear that paper. You're going to be cutting the paper. You want to make sure there is a little bit of a gap, otherwise that paper is just going to fall off. If you've ever done paper piecing, they tell you to make your stitch length really, really small. So even smaller, I would, if I were doing paper piecing, I go down to a 0.5 with a straight stitch. It's a little different than a zigzag, but so yeah, you don't want your paper to kind of fall apart under your stitches. So you want to play around with that with your machine. Everybody's machines are different, but I'm just kind of give you a ballpark of what I use is the 0.5 width or 5.0 width and 0.8 length. I could probably go a little bit bigger, but I liked the look of this and it worked out. So I'm going to take these first two over to the machine, and you're just going to do the zigzag all the way around. So I am, and you probably can too. I'm going to actually, you can see I have a little bit of the edging right there. I'm going to trim that down. You may or may not have it when you're making yours, but let's see, this one's got just a little bit, and some of the edges may fray a little bit, but that's the beauty of it. That's okay. That's why we do the zigzag. It will fray a little bit, but that kind of holds it in place. Pull them off if you want. All right, there are those two, and I am going to, this is a little bit more adhered, so I'm going to trim this off, baste it to my paper and stitch it. This one's just so cute. All right, I'm gonna go stitch this one and be right back. All right, last one. I kind of went a little wonky on there, but that's okay. And you can see it stitched right through there, and it stitches right over that dried glitter glitz gel just fine. And I saw a reminder that you can, yes, you can send these through the post. If you want them to stay nice and clean and pretty, I suggest putting them in an envelope, but you don't have to. And we're going to trim this one down just a little bit. All right, here they are. Very cute. Kind of add to the ones that we had already had done. And now I have a bunch more cards. These are great, like I said earlier, Valentine's, thank you cards from the holidays. Just thinking of you is really nice. And their size, and they're definitely under 1 ounce. So 1 stamp should do it. There they are. I'm going to go back over to the screen, and I believe Dawn will be drawing our winner of the gift card. Does the sewing through the gel dull my needle? I don't know. This needle is actually, I've had this needle in here for a long time. If you're concerned about it, I would just hold on to an old needle and use that. Paper can and will dull your needle over time, anybody who does paper piecing. So I wouldn't put your brand spanking new needle in there. But like I said, this one, I honestly, I probably need to change it. I think I've quilted 2 baby quilts and done a lot of other things with this needle. But because of tonight's project, I just left it in there and it did just fine. So a postage rate on them, I can weigh them later. I don't have a scale in my room right here, and I can put that in the description of how much the average of that weighs. I've mailed things heavier than those when I've sent out quilt blocks, and I've done quilt swaps, and it weighed more than those, and it was only 1 stamp. But I will weigh it for the sake of this and let you know. What size sewing machine needle? I'm using a 90-14. I'll put that in the reply to that. Congratulations, Karen. I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a fantastic holiday. Looking forward to the new year. The next Facebook Live will be January 24th, same time. I am planning something Valentine's Day theme. So that way we'll get it in and you have a couple weeks to zip it up for whatever you want to use it for. So I will stop the live video stream here in just a couple more minutes. If there's anybody who wants to have any other questions in the chat, just type away and we'll see if we can answer them for you. But for everyone else, thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you next time.